What is up, YouTube? My name is Daniel and you've tuned into my channel Life with Dan, where we go into different business topics like stock market investing, entrepreneurship, and financial and life decisions. Thanks to all of you that keep coming back to the channel. I super appreciate the support, and to those of you that are tuned into my channel for the very first time, welcome, and it's great to have you here. Now, I know I've been doing a lot of stock market videos pretty much since I started the channel, so I decided to switch it up for today's video and go into a little bit of the financing world. So for today's video, I'm pretty excited because we're going to be going into the wonderful world of credit cards. Yes, I said it, credit cards. And I'm super excited to get into it, guys, because I, for one, am a big fan of credit cards. I stand by them, use them in my everyday life, and I encourage the use of them 100%. So I'm excited to get into today's video. We're going to break it up into 4 parts on the topic of credit cards. We're going to be going into what they are and how they work, the benefits of using them and why I think you should use it over debit, common misconceptions and myths that are out there with regards to credit cards, and if you are yet to start using credit cards or are just started using them, some tips and suggestions that I would give with regards to being a beginner with credit cards. So I'm going to try to keep it short but valuable, guys. We'll get into all that right after the intro. So to jump right into the first part of the video, guys, most of us know what a credit card is, or at least think we know what a credit card is. But essentially what it is a payment card that's given to you by a card issuer that essentially allows you to pay for things without the need to cough up your own capital up front. It allows you to basically spread out purchases. Instead of having to cough up that $500 for that TV up front, you can put it on a credit card and pay it over the next 6 months or something like that, to give you an example. Credit cards come with what you can call a revolving credit line, which is basically a set amount of money that you've been allocated that you can continue to use as long as you pay it off. That same amount is still always going to be there. In a way, you're borrowing money from whatever financial institution gave you the card. So it's just basically like an IOU. Whenever you swipe that card, you kind of swiped the financial institution's money and you told them, or you promised them rather, via a contract signature that you're going to pay it back. The catch usually is for people with credit cards that if you take longer than 30 days to pay back whatever it is that you put on the card, you start accruing interest. And it's that very fact right there, the fact that you start paying interest after taking more than 30 days to pay off a product that, people tend to hate and avoid credit cards. That's what usually tends to end up hurting people down the road because, there's a mismanagement or a misunderstanding of how these things work. But like I mentioned at the beginning, guys, I strongly believe that with the right knowledge and the right tools at hand, credit cards are actually very useful tools that can empower you to save money on a lot of things and actually get you a lot of free stuff. Whether the card's given to you by a bank or a retail store or some other kind of financial institution, usually the process for getting a credit card is all the same. You fill out an application with the card issuer, whether that be in person or a lot of the times now online, and you basically give 3 key things in order to apply for a credit card. Your personal information, so basic things like your name, date of birth, address, and things like that. Your social security number, and your gross annual income. And then you turn in your application, and typically it takes a couple of weeks to hear back. In some cases, you get instant notifications if you were pre-approved or things like that. All financial institutions or whoever it is that's giving you a credit card is going to check something that all of us in the United States have that you need to definitely know about, and that is a credit score. I'm sure all of you have heard of that before, but for those of you that have not, Investopedia defines it well. It's a 3-digit number between 300 and 850 that depicts a consumer's credit worthiness. The higher the score, the better a borrower looks to potential lenders. A credit score is based on credit history, which is consistent of the number of open accounts that you have, total levels of debt that you have, and that can include all things: student loans, a car loan, a mortgage, credit cards, all kinds of stuff. It's basically like a grade that you have, a score that you have on how good you are at paying back. Because, card issuers want to make sure that you're a trustworthy person that's going to pay back the money they lend you. But with all of that said, what are the benefits of using credit cards? Why should we bother getting a credit card and using that to make our purchases instead of a debit card? Well, there's a handful of them that I want to get into, guys, but the main one that did it for me, the one that really got me interested in opening up a credit card, is the fact that a lot of credit cards today, in fact, most credit cards today, will offer some form of cash back for every purchase that you make on the card. What that basically means is they'll give you a certain percentage back on every purchase that you make. So just to give you guys like a basic example, a 1% cashback card would mean that for every purchase you make on that card, every time you swipe that card, you get 1% back of the total purchase price. So let's say you swiped for something that cost $100, you would get 1% back for that, so $1 back for that transaction. And that would be for every transaction that you make. So already that there is something that makes credit and using a credit card as opposed to a debit card where you just use your own cash so much better. Most cards out there will offer some form of category in cashback. You might have a card that offers 2% back on gas, for example, meaning that anytime you use that credit card to buy gas, it would be a 2%, cashback to you. So, cashback is just an amazing thing because it pays you back for making the normal everyday purchases that you already have to make. Now, not all cards are gonna give you actual cash back. Sometimes the credit card will offer statement credits. So the money can only go to paying off the card basically, as opposed to getting cash back that you can freely do whatever you want with, pay off the card or just put it in your bank account. The fact that you get anything back for making purchases somewhere is nice, right? But obviously the majority of us would want cash. So just make sure to double check whenever you're applying for a card. When I discovered that I could be getting credit off every purchase I make, I was flabbergasted to think that I ever was using a debit card. I mean, why do that if you can actually get paid to swipe? Is basically what it is. Yeah, it's just crazy to me. So that's feature number one, guys, the fact that credit cards can give you cash back. Another really cool benefit of using credit cards, especially credit cards over debit, is the fact that you get to stretch out the payment of a purchase. Think about how big a hit you take when you make a fat, cash payment to something that you buy. Like think of, I don't know, maybe you bought a part for your car, maybe you bought a new TV. Purchases like that can be a pretty big hit to your wallet if you do it upfront cash. So a credit card gives you the option to spread that out. Rather than having to drop $500 right away, like I mentioned earlier, you spread it out. Maybe you can do $100 over 5 months. Maybe you have a low interest card that allows you to do so without taking too big of a hit on interest. So it's just cool that you have other options with how to pay for things. I'm not necessarily saying that you have to go and make every transaction a credit one, but the fact that you have this option to stretch something out over a longer period of time and still be able to get it right then and there is an amazing thing, and I think people need to take more advantage of that. Again, assuming they're able to keep up their end of the bargain at the end of the line when time is up and money is due. To move on to the third benefit that I wanted to mention with regards to using credit over debit cards is the fact that nowadays most credit cards, just to entice you to sign up for them, will offer some kind of cash bonus after you spend a certain amount on the card in a certain period of time. This is a super cool thing because if the amount that they ask for fits within your total monthly spend and it's basically going to be right around what you were already going to spend anyway, you basically get free cash to do it on this new credit card that you apply for. An example of this would be the Chase Freedom cards. Chase has 2 different credit cards that offer the same sign-up bonus, where if you apply for the card, get it, and then spend $500 within the first 3 months of having it, right? So you have 90 days to spend about $500, you're given $200 as a cashback bonus. Now that's given back to you in the form of points, which you can then use to deposit as cash in your bank account or pay off the card or whatever it is that you want to do. It's just $200 free dollars. Before I was even working at Chase, actually, I was enticed to get the Chase Freedom card because of that bonus. It was right around the holiday season, so it was that kind of thing where it's like, oh, they'll give me $200 if I spend $500 in the next 3 months. I know I'm about to spend more than that over with gifts and whatnot, so let me just apply for this card and it gives me a $200 help for this holiday season. So pretty cool thing, guys. I would definitely look into cards that have sign-up bonuses and take advantage of that. Obviously, don't go crazy applying for all kinds of cards at once, but just the fact that that's available, it's free money and it's something to entice you to get a card, and I think it's something we should take advantage of. On top of that, a lot of cards will even go out of their way to offer no interest on purchases that you make for a certain period of time. So you'll get a sign-up bonus and sometimes up to a year, sometimes even more, of no interest charges on carrying balances on that card. Chase Freedom, like I said, another example, in addition to that $200 bonus that they'll give you for spending $500 in the first 3 months, they also give you the first 15 months interest free, which means you can just keep buying things, and even if you had a balance at the end of the month, you wouldn't get charged interest until 15 months down the road. So pretty cool way to add value to these cards. When you know what you can do with them, when you know about the offering brings and what you can take advantage of, you know, credit cards can be a big help in your life. It can be a very powerful tool that, you know, you use as leverage, that you use to add value to your purchases, just something that you can use on your day-to-day that, you know, just gives you that little bit more of a help. And now the fourth and final benefit that I wanted to cover with regards to credit cards and how they can be useful to you is the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, using credit cards helps your credit history and ultimately your credit score. The use of a credit card, basically, you know, keeping a balance and then paying it off and showing that you can do so in a timely manner is going to help your credit history and ultimately going to bring a lot more opportunity for you down the road. When you have good credit history, when you have usage, when there's something for people to look at, for lenders to look at, you might even become someone that starts getting marketed offers. You know, that's something that started happening to me down the line once I started applying for cards and, you know, using them and paying them off and whatnot. You'll get offers from other banks, and that's a good thing, you know, to have a good reputation in credit history, because ultimately all of us want down the road to buy a car, to buy a house, to be able to borrow money, maybe if we're running our businesses, right? We don't start thinking about these things until it's too late, guys. So I just think it's important to think about all this. You know, the fact that credit cards can help you build up your history and build up your score and kind of give you that reputation amongst lenders and financial institutions is a great thing, guys, and is all the more reason to use a credit card. So that's the fourth and final benefit that I wanted to cover, guys. Basically, the fact that the use of credit cards can help you build a credit history, ultimately increasing your credit score, assuming that you're someone that's, you know, using the card steadily and paying it off. So now that we've gone over a handful of the benefits associated with using credit cards, now I'd like to cover some of the myths, some of the misconceptions that people have with regards to credit cards, just to clear the air on some of them, because I think a lot of these misconceptions hold people back from applying or even trying to get them. So, you know, I definitely think we should look into them. One of these misconceptions being the fact that people think if they have a low credit score or maybe a young credit history that they shouldn't even bother trying to get a credit card. And that's just not true, guys. Although it is harder to get a credit card if you have a low score or if you have a young credit history, there are options for you. For example, there are things called secured credit cards, which is basically the same thing that a credit card is, but the limit that's on the card is actually set by a security deposit that you have to make. So in order to open a secured credit card, you basically have to front the cash for what your limit is going to be, and then the financial institution, you know, locks that in as your limit. They're a little bit different from regular credit cards in the sense that you have to pay them off every 30 days, I believe, and you know, obviously you had to front some money to open it, but it's a good way to get your foot in the door if you're having a hard time getting, you know, your regular standard credit card. Another option would be to try a retail store. Sometimes retail stores are a little more willing to lend you money to use there, to shop at their stores, than a bank or, you know, financial institution might. One of my favorite cards that I still use to this day, that was one of my first credit cards, is the Best Buy credit card. So it only works there, but I found that to be a card that was very easy to get. All I did was sign up to get it when I bought, I think, like the Xbox or something like that. Like I signed up to get the card and because it would give me like a little discount on the Xbox. The stores make offers like that because they want people to get the card. So, you know, that might be another option if you are someone that has a low credit score or not enough credit history to get yourself off your feet. Another common misconception that people have is that you have to maintain a balance or constantly be using your credit cards in order to increase your credit score. And that is also not true, guys. Although this video is not about credit scores, what really increases your credit score is the percentage of your credit limit that you're using. So the less you use of it, the better. How quick you pay stuff off, how old your credit history is, and, you know, just your frequency of use. It has really little to do with actually keeping a balance. You know, the credit bureaus and the people that look at those things are more so focused on your ability to pay back when you actually do use it, and you know, just about how responsible you are with it. That's something that I think puts people in a bad position from the beginning, because they think that that's the case, and a lot of people that get credit cards are specifically trying to work on their credit. So, you know, they think that they have to be constantly using it, and then we fall into the interest trap and things like that. So it's important to debunk this, guys. You don't have to be carrying a balance in order to increase your credit score. Another very big misconception that people have, a myth that people believe about credit cards, is that the interest rate that's given to you when you apply for the card is the one that you're going to have forever. That is not true, guys. You are actually able and should, once you've had a card for a certain amount of time, ask for an interest rate decrease if you haven't gotten one. one. You know, if you're given a card and it's like a 25% interest rate and you've had that card for several years, it's still a 25% interest rate, I would call them up and ask for a drop in interest rate. You have every right to do so in the same way you have every right to call and ask for a credit limit increase. It's weird that people don't know this, but I totally understand it. You know, when you're facing these financial institutions, you know, these are big, huge companies, and you just assume that there's no way you could have an upper hand on them. But you have rights with these cards, guys. There are things you can ask for, interest rates and credit limits included. So if you ever have a card that, you know, maybe the interest rate hasn't changed in a long time and you know that you're a good standing customer, make that call to customer service and try to see who you can talk to about lowering that. Or same thing with the credit limit. You know, if your card has been the same limit, $1,000 for maybe like 3 years, and you're like, you know, I'd like a little bit more on this card. I'd like to make bigger purchases that I know I'm able to pay off. Give them a call and ask for it. So don't think that you can't ask for changes to things like your interest rate or your limit, because you definitely can. Finally, one last myth that I wanted to debunk for people that believe it is the fact that if you apply for a credit card, you're going to very badly damage your credit score. This is also not true. Applying for one individual card actually does very little to your credit score. It does put a hard inquiry into your credit history, which, for those of you that don't know, a hard inquiry is whenever a financial institution looks into your credit history in order to consider giving you a card. That's called a hard inquiry. They looked into your credit history, they saw what's in your record and all that. And actually, the fact that they did that goes on your record as well as a hard inquiry. Now, applying for a bunch of cards, especially applying for a bunch of cards in a short period of time, that will destroy your credit score. It's kind of like a snowball effect. If you apply for one, you know, it's like a few points docked. You apply for another one, maybe like a month later, okay, maybe it's going to be like 6-7 points. You keep going, it's going to get bad. So you definitely don't want to do that. If you're applying for cards, you know, take it a little easy, spread it out over a few months, I would say. So those are just a handful of the myths, misconceptions that are out there with regards to using credit cards. I just wanted to air them out, guys, because I don't want people to not go after credit cards, to not seek out those opportunities and take advantage of them simply because of misunderstandings of how they work or whether or not they're something that's available to you. But with that said, I'd like to wrap up the video by giving you guys a couple of tips and suggestions, especially if you haven't had a credit card yet or if you're just now getting to using them. I've kind of alluded to this fact over the course of the video, but one of the most important things to take into consideration, guys, is that you should never abuse credit cards. Don't overextend yourself just because of the power that a credit card puts in your hand. A good rule to live by is that you really shouldn't put a balance on your card more than what you could pay off right away in debit. So let's say, for example, you're looking at some really cool tech in Best Buy, something that's going to cost you $700. If you've only got $200 in the bank, probably not a good idea to overextend yourself by buying that big thing on a credit card, you know, because that's how people end up paying interest and getting really behind on payments. These are supposed to be tools, not something that you take advantage of. Another thing I would say is only apply for a card that you understand, and if you're a newbie, only if it's free. Don't put yourself in a position where you have to pay an annual fee every year for the card, especially if you haven't started with cards yet. Get a free one, look for something simple, something easy, and something that pays cash back. Ideally, I think your first credit card, if you have a decent enough score and the means of getting it, would be a no annual fee card that has a sign-up bonus, that doesn't charge interest for a set amount of time, and that offers you a bunch of perks. That would be the ideal credit card. You don't want to just get a card that gives you an interest rate, a set credit limit, and off you go. Use the card, pay it off. You want to have perks. That's the whole point. That's what I'm trying to get you guys to understand and to get behind, is that credit cards are for perks, are for value, and that's what you should look for as a newbie, especially if you have yet to get a credit card in your wallet. And finally, a last tip that I would give is simply just do your homework, do your research, and ask questions. With any card you're looking into, know all about it, know what the perks are, know if it's cashback or just statement credits, know everything about the interest rate, and if there is a introductory interest rate, how long it lasts and when it'll expire. And you know, if you're applying for the card in person, ask any questions that might come to mind. You have every right to do so, and you should never leave yourself uninformed with credit cards, because then down the road you have some issue or some experience with the card that you don't understand, and you're frustrated, and now you don't like the card, you want to get rid of it, when you simply could have asked the question or done the research, looked it up maybe, and gotten clarity on the situation. But with that said, guys, I don't have much else to say. For this video, I just wanted to kind of brush over the topic of credit cards and hopefully get you guys interested in them a bit more. I know that it's a scary thing, you know, to use money that's not yours, but once you know what you're doing and once you see the the advantages of credit cards and the value that they can add for you, it's a crazy thing to not take advantage of, you know. But that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Wanted to keep it short and simple and bring something new to the table. So if you guys could just do me the favors of hitting the like and subscribe buttons so that I can continue to grow the channel and you know, keep putting videos out for you guys, I would truly appreciate it. I'm thankful for each and every single one of you who checked out the video today and that continue to support the channel. I'll be back next week with more content for you guys, but until then, this is Life with Dan.